The night was colder than usual, with the soft hum of wind brushing against the windows of my small apartment. Alex had come over, just as they had countless times before, with a bottle of wine and their usual charming smile. It was one of those nights where conversation flowed easily, no agenda, no expectations, just the comfort of two best friends spending time together. But tonight, something felt different. Alex seemed restless, their laughter a bit too loud, their gaze lingering on me a little too long. I noticed the way they watched me as I moved around the room, pouring drinks and setting snacks on the table. It wasn't like Alex to hold back, yet something in their demeanor hinted at words unsaid, feelings suppressed. We talked for hours, the wine loosening our tongues as we dove into topics both lighthearted and serious, memories of shared adventures, embarrassing stories, and secrets only we knew brought laughter and warmth to the room. But as the night deepened, the atmosphere shifted. "You know," Alex began, their voice softer than usual, "I've been thinking a lot about us lately." I raised an eyebrow, curious but cautious. "What about us?" They hesitated, their eyes searching mine as if trying to gauge my reaction before continuing. "Have you ever thought about what it would be like if we weren't just friends?" The question hung in the air between us, heavy and charged. My heart raced, a mix of confusion, curiosity, and something else I couldn't quite name. I laughed nervously, trying to diffuse the tension. "Alex, are you drunk?" "No," they replied, their voice steady. "I'm serious. I've been holding this in for years and I can't do it anymore. I need you to know how I feel." My mind raced, memories flashing of every hug, every inside joke, every moment that had solidified our bond. Had I missed the signs? Or had I ignored them, too afraid to acknowledge what they might mean? "I don't know what to say," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "You don't have to say anything," Alex said, moving closer. Their hand brushed mine, the touch electric. I couldn't keep this to myself anymore. The tension between us was palpable, the air thick with unspoken words and unacknowledged feelings. My instincts screamed at me to pull away, to protect the friendship that had been my anchor for so long. But a part of me, a part I barely recognized, wanted to stay, to explore the possibilities Alex was laying bare. They leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to stop them. When their lips met mine, it was hesitant and tender, a question rather than a declaration. My breath hitched, my mind a whirlwind of emotions I couldn't name. When we pulled apart, the silence was deafening. "I'm sorry," Alex said, their voice thick with emotion. "I shouldn't have—" "No," I interrupted, my voice firmer than I expected. I need time to figure this out." Alex nodded, their expression a mixture of hope and regret. "Take all the time you need. I just needed you to know how I feel." As they left that night, I sat alone in the quiet, my thoughts a chaotic tangle of what-ifs and possibilities. Our friendship had crossed a line, and there was no going back. The question now was whether we could move forward, together or apart. The night started like any other, Alex showing up at my apartment with their usual flair, a bottle of wine in one hand and a mischievous grin on their face. "Liv," they said, stepping inside and shrugging off their coat. "You've got to stop letting me raid the wine aisle unsupervised. I spent 10 minutes debating whether this one screams sophistication or regret." I laughed, already feeling the familiar warmth of their presence. "Knowing you, it's probably a bit of both," I teased, taking the bottle from them. "Make yourself at home while I grab glasses." Alex was my constant, my anchor in the chaotic whirlwind of life. We'd been inseparable for years, our bond stronger than most could understand. But tonight, something felt different. It was in the way their eyes lingered on me a moment longer than usual, the way their voice softened when they said my name. We settled onto the couch, the wine loosening our tongues as the hours passed. The conversation flowed effortlessly, as it always did. We laughed until our sides hurt, reminiscing about the time we got lost on a road trip or the disastrous cooking attempt that ended with pizza delivery. But as the clock ticked toward midnight, the air between us began to shift. The laughter faded, replaced by a quiet tension that neither of us dared to address. Alex leaned back, their eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my stomach flip. "Liv," they said softly, their voice carrying a weight that hadn't been there before. I met their gaze, my heart skipping a beat. "What is it?" They hesitated, their fingers fidgeting with the stem of their glass. "There's something I've been meaning to tell you. I didn't know how." "Alex, you're scaring me," I said, half joking, trying to lighten the mood. They shook their head, a nervous laugh escaping their lips. "It's not bad. At least I don't think it is. I need you to hear me out, okay?" I nodded, the seriousness in their tone silencing any playful retort. "I've been in love with you for as long as I can remember," Alex confessed, their words tumbling out in a rush. "I've tried to push it down, to ignore it, but I can't. You're all I think about, Liv. You're everything to me." The room spun. My mind raced, searching for something, anything to say. "Alex," I finally managed, my voice barely a whisper. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," they said quickly, their eyes pleading. "I just needed you to know. I couldn't keep it in anymore. Every time I'm with you, it's like, God, Liv, it's like the world makes sense. And I know this might ruin everything, but I can't pretend anymore." Tears pricked the corners of my eyes as I stared at them, the weight of their confession settling over me like a heavy blanket. "Why now?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Why tell me this now?" "Because I can't keep lying to myself," Alex said, their voice breaking. "Every time I look at you, I wonder what it would be like if you felt the same way. And if you don't, if this ruins us, then at least I'll know I tried." A storm of emotions swirled inside me, confusion, fear, curiosity, and something else I couldn't quite name. My heart ached at the vulnerability in Alex's eyes, the raw honesty of their words. Before I could stop myself, I reached out, my hand brushing theirs. The touch was electric, sending a jolt through me that left me breathless. "Alex," I said, my voice barely audible, "this changes everything." "I know," they whispered, their eyes locked on mine. "But I'm willing to take that risk if it means there's even a chance you might feel the same." And then, before I could overthink, before the chaos of my thoughts could pull me away, I leaned in. Our lips met in a tentative, searching kiss, the world around us fading into nothingness. It was soft and hesitant at first, a question rather than a declaration. But as the kiss deepened, the tension that had been building between us for years finally broke, giving way to something raw and undeniable. When we pulled apart, breathless and wide-eyed, the silence between us was deafening. "What does this mean?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. Alex smiled, their hand cupping my cheek. "It means we stop pretending, Liv. It means we figure this out together." For the first time that night, I allowed myself to hope, to imagine a future where Alex was more than just my best friend. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once, a sweet chaos I couldn't resist. And as we sat there, tangled in each other's arms, I knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. "Liv, you know you're terrible at answering your phone, right?" Alex's voice came from the doorway, a mix of exasperation and affection. I glanced up from the kitchen counter, where I was slicing an apple, and rolled my eyes. "That's why I have you to show up unannounced. You're basically my living reminder." They smirked, dropping their bag onto the couch and shrugging off their jacket. "You're lucky I still put up with you." "And you're lucky I let you in," I shot back, tossing a slice of apple at them. Alex caught it midair with a dramatic flourish, biting into it as they leaned against the counter. "You'd miss me too much if I stopped showing up." There was an ease to our banter, the kind that only came from years of friendship. But tonight, there was something different in the way Alex looked at me, something that made my stomach flip. Wine or tea? I asked, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling. Wine. Definitely wine, Alex replied, their voice softer now. It's been a long week. I grabbed 2 glasses and the bottle they'd brought, pouring as they watched me in silence. It wasn't like Alex to be quiet. What's going on? I asked, handing them a glass. They took it without answering, their fingers brushing mine for just a moment longer than necessary. My pulse quickened. Liv, can we talk about something? Alex's voice was uncharacteristically serious, their eyes searching mine. I frowned, my heart skipping a beat. You're scaring me. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, they said quickly, but their tone didn't reassure me. They set their glass down and ran a hand through their hair, clearly struggling to find the right words. Alex, I said, trying to lighten the mood. You're being so dramatic. Just spit it out. They looked at me then, and the intensity in their gaze stopped me cold. I've been keeping something from you, they said quietly. I stared at them, the weight of their words sinking in. What do you mean? Alex sighed, stepping closer. Liv, I've been in love with you for years. The words hit me like a freight train, stealing the breath from my lungs. I blinked, sure I'd misheard them. What? You heard me, Alex said, their voice steady despite the vulnerability in their expression. I love you, Liv. Not just as a friend, not just as someone I care about. I'm in love with you. My mind raced, every memory of our friendship flashing before my eyes. Had there been signs? Moments I'd missed? Alex, you can't just drop this on me, I said, my voice trembling. Why now? Because I can't keep pretending, they said, stepping even closer. Every time I see you, I want to tell you. Every time you laugh, or roll your eyes at me, or look at me like I'm your whole world, I want to be more than your best friend, Liv. I want to be everything. The tension in the room was unbearable, a mix of fear, hope, and something else I couldn't name. My heart was pounding, my body frozen in place. Say something, Alex whispered, their voice breaking. Even if it's to tell me I'm an idiot. Just don't leave me hanging. I swallowed hard, trying to find the right words. Alex, I don't know what to say. You've been my best friend for so long, and now you're telling me that I love you, they interrupted, their voice firm. And I know this might ruin everything, but I had to tell you. I couldn't keep it in anymore. The silence that followed was deafening. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Alex's eyes were fixed on me, pleading, searching for something, anything that might give them hope. My mind was spinning, thoughts tangled in a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief. Alex, I finally managed, my voice trembling. I don't know how to process this right now. They took a shaky breath, their hands fidgeting at their sides. I know it's a lot, Liv. I know this isn't fair to just drop on you like this. But I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal when it's not for me. Why didn't you tell me before? I asked, my voice cracking under the weight of my emotions. Alex let out a bitter laugh, shaking their head. Because I was terrified. I didn't want to lose you. I thought, if I could just bury it, keep it to myself, maybe I could live with being close to you even if it wasn't the way I wanted. My chest tightened at the raw vulnerability in their voice. Alex, the person who always seemed so sure of themselves, so steady, was unraveling before me. But then I realized I couldn't do it anymore, they continued, their voice breaking. Every time I saw you with someone else, every time you called me to talk about some guy you liked, it felt like I was being torn apart. I couldn't keep pretending I was okay with just being your friend. Tears stung my eyes as their words hit me like a tidal wave. How had I not seen it? Or worse, how had I ignored it? Alex, you're my best friend, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. You're the one person I trust more than anyone, and now you're telling me that I want more, they said, stepping closer. I want to be the one you call when something amazing happens. I want to be the one who holds you when things fall apart. I want to be the one you love, Liv. My breath hitched as their words washed over me, the intensity in their eyes making it impossible to look away. "But what if this ruins everything?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What if we cross this line and it all falls apart?" Alex reached out then, their hand brushing against mine. The touch was warm, grounding, and sent a jolt through me that left me breathless. "What if it doesn't?" they whispered. "What if this is the start of something incredible? Liv, I know it's risky. I know I'm asking a lot. But I've been in love with you for so long, and I can't keep hiding it. I need you to know how I feel, even if it scares you." Tears spilled over as I stared at them, my heart aching with the weight of their words. I wanted to say something, anything, but my emotions were too overwhelming, my thoughts too chaotic. And then, in a moment of sweet chaos, Alex cupped my face gently, their thumb brushing away a tear. "If this is too much, just tell me," they said softly. "I'll stop. I'll leave." But I had to try, Liv. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. I closed my eyes, the warmth of their touch seeping into me. My heart was a battlefield, torn between fear and something I couldn't quite name, something that felt a lot like hope. When I opened my eyes, Alex was still there, waiting, their own emotions laid bare. Slowly, almost instinctively, I leaned into their touch. "Alex," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I don't know what this means, but I don't want to lose you. I can't lose you." "You won't," they promised, their voice steady and full of conviction. "No matter what, you won't lose me." And then, before I could overthink or pull away, they kissed me. It was tentative at first, soft and searching, like a question waiting for an answer. But as I kissed them back, something inside me shifted. The fear melted away, replaced by a warmth that spread through me like wildfire. When we pulled apart, our foreheads resting against each other, the room was quiet except for the sound of our ragged breaths. "This is crazy," I said, a laugh bubbling up despite the tears still on my cheeks. "Maybe," Alex replied, their lips curving into a small smile. "But it feels right, doesn't it?" I nodded, a shaky laugh escaping me. "Yeah, it does." For the first time that night, the chaos between us didn't feel so overwhelming. It felt like the start of something new, something terrifying and beautiful all at once. And as Alex pulled me into their arms, I knew there was no turning back. Alex's confession hung in the air between us, as fragile and delicate as glass. I could see the way their chest rose and fell, their breath shallow with tension. They were waiting for me to say something, anything, but words wouldn't come. "Liv," they said again, softer this time, almost a plea. "I know this is a lot. I know it might seem like I've just blindsided you, but I swear this isn't sudden for me. It's not some fleeting thought. It's been there for years, always there, just waiting for me to be brave enough to tell you." The tremble in their voice unraveled me. Alex, who was always so steady, so confident, looked vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. Their hands, usually so sure and expressive, fidgeted at their sides, their fingers nervously brushing together. "How long?" I finally asked, my voice breaking under the weight of my own emotions. "How long have you felt this way?" They hesitated, as if saying it aloud would make it even more real. "Honestly, I think I've always felt it. But it hit me hard about 3 years ago when you told me about that guy you were dating, the one who made you laugh so much." I frowned, trying to remember. "You mean Ryan?" "Yeah." Alex let out a shaky laugh. "You talked about him like he hung the stars for you, and I hated it. I hated that someone else could make you feel that way, because all I wanted was to be the one who made you light up like that." My breath caught in my throat, a mixture of surprise and guilt tightening in my chest. I thought back to those years, to the times Alex had been there to comfort me when things fell apart. Had they been feeling this way all along, silently carrying this burden while I leaned on them without a second thought? "Why didn't you say anything back then?" I asked, barely able to meet their eyes. "Because I was scared," they admitted, their voice heavy with emotion. Scared that you'd look at me differently. Scared that I'd lose the one thing that mattered most to me. You. Alex. My voice faltered, my heart breaking for them. You should have told me. They laughed bitterly, shaking their head. Yeah, maybe. But then again, maybe it's better I didn't. You deserve to be happy, even if it wasn't with me. The room fell into silence again, the weight of their words settling over us like a heavy blanket. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, staring into the unknown. I'm not saying this to pressure you, Alex said, breaking the silence. I don't expect you to just flip a switch and feel the same way. I just couldn't keep it inside anymore, Liv. I needed you to know. I looked at them then, really looked at them. Their eyes filled with an aching vulnerability, their lips pressed together as if trying to hold back more words. This was Alex, my best friend, my constant, the person who knew me better than anyone else. How had I missed this? Or had I seen it all along and just been too afraid to acknowledge it? What if, I started, my voice trembling. What if I don't feel the same way? Alex's face tightened for a moment, their jaw clenching as if bracing for a blow. Then I'll deal with it, they said, their voice steady despite the pain in their eyes. I'll still be here for you, Liv, always, even if it hurts. Tears welled in my eyes at the raw honesty of their words. And what if I do? The question lingered between us, the possibility sparking something electric in the air. Alex stepped closer, their gaze never leaving mine. Then I'll spend the rest of my life proving to you that I'll never let you down. That you're everything to me, Liv. Everything. My chest ached, my emotions swirling in a chaotic storm of fear, hope, and something I couldn't quite name. I didn't know what to say, what to feel, but I couldn't deny the way my heart was racing, the way my skin felt alive under their gaze. Alex, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. I'm scared. I know, they said softly, their hand brushing against mine. So am I. But if we don't try, we'll never know, Liv. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what could have been. Their words cracked something open inside me, a dam breaking under the weight of years of unspoken feelings. I didn't have all the answers, didn't know what the future would hold, but in that moment, all I knew was that Alex was here, bearing their soul to me. And maybe, just maybe, I didn't want to let them go. I reached for their hand, intertwining my fingers with theirs. The simple touch sent a wave of warmth through me, grounding me in the chaos of my emotions. Alex, I said, my voice trembling. I don't know what this means, but I think I want to find out. Their eyes lit up, a spark of hope breaking through the storm of vulnerability. You mean that? I nodded, tears spilling over. Yeah, I mean it. Alex's grip on my hand tightened, their touch steadying me as much as it seemed to ground them. For a moment, we just stood there, the world around us falling away. All I could hear was the sound of my heart pounding and the faint, uneven rhythm of their breathing. I don't want to mess this up, I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. We're too important to each other, Alex. You won't, they replied, their eyes searching mine with a tenderness that made my chest ache. We won't. We'll figure it out together. We always do. Their confidence calmed me, but the chaos inside me didn't fully fade. It was a mixture of excitement, fear, and something thrillingly unfamiliar. I wasn't used to seeing Alex this way, wasn't used to feeling the way I did now. And yet, it didn't feel wrong. I let out a shaky laugh, wiping my face with my free hand. You've turned my whole world upside down, you know that? Alex smiled, their thumb brushing lightly over my knuckles. If it makes you feel any better, you've been doing that to me for years. We laughed together then, the sound breaking the tension that had been suffocating us moments ago. But underneath it, the unspoken truth remained. This was a turning point, a leap into the unknown. I took a deep breath, my nerves still dancing under my skin. Okay, I said, looking up at Alex. What now? They grinned, a mischievous glint in their eyes. Now? Now we stop overthinking and let whatever's meant to happen, happen. Before I could respond, Alex gently pulled me closer, their arms wrapping around me like it was the most natural thing in the world. I hesitated for only a moment before leaning into them, my head resting against their chest. The steady thrum of their heartbeat echoed in my ears, grounding me in the midst of the emotional storm. This feels weird, I admitted, my voice muffled against them. Good weird or bad weird, they asked, their tone light, but with an undercurrent of concern. I pulled back slightly to look at them, my lips curving into a small smile. Good weird, I said. Terrifying, but good. Alex's smile softened, and for the first time all night, I saw the tension in their shoulders ease. You don't have to have it all figured out right now, they said gently. We can take this slow as you need. I nodded, grateful for their patience, their understanding. But even as I agreed, a spark of curiosity flickered inside me, growing stronger with each passing second. What if I don't want to go slow? I blurted out, the words surprising even myself. Alex's eyebrows shot up, their grin widening. Oh, heat rushed to my cheeks, and I bit my lip, suddenly self-conscious. I just mean, I don't want to overthink it. I want to see where this goes, without holding back. Their expression softened, the teasing glint in their eyes replaced with something deeper, something that made my heart flutter. Liv, they said, their voice low and warm. You have no idea how long I've waited to hear you say that. The next moment was a blur, a perfect, chaotic blur. Alex leaned in slowly, giving me plenty of time to pull away. But I didn't. I couldn't. When their lips met mine, it was like every piece of tension between us shattered, replaced by something new, something electric. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, as if we were both testing the waters of this new territory. But it didn't take long for the sweetness to give way to something more. Alex's hand slid to the small of my back, pulling me closer as the kiss deepened. My fingers found their way to their hair, tangling in the familiar strands as I lost myself in the moment. When we finally broke apart, breathless and wide-eyed, the room felt warmer, brighter. Well, Alex said, a grin spreading across their face. That was unexpected, I offered, my own lips curving into a shy smile. Perfect, they corrected, their voice filled with quiet certainty. I laughed, a mix of exhilaration and disbelief bubbling up inside me. We're really doing this, aren't we? Looks like it, Alex replied, their grin widening. And for the record, I couldn't be happier about it. For the first time that night, the fear inside me began to fade, replaced by a sense of hope I hadn't felt in years. This was new, uncharted territory, but with Alex by my side, it didn't feel quite so scary. As we stood there, wrapped up in each other, I realized something. Maybe sweet chaos wasn't such a bad thing after all. As Alex's arms stayed securely around me, I couldn't help but let out a small laugh, the sound breaking through the charged silence. What's so funny? They asked, their voice a mixture of curiosity and amusement. It's just, I didn't think tonight would turn out like this, I admitted, looking up at them. I thought you were just stopping by to raid my fridge and complain about your week. Alex chuckled, their smile softening. Believe me, I didn't think I'd be confessing my feelings tonight either. I came over because I missed you, I always do. The sincerity in their voice made my heart skip a beat. It wasn't just their words. It was the way they said them, like I was the only person in the world that mattered. I missed you too, I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. But this, Alex, this feels so different. Good different or bad different, they teased, their familiar smirk returning. I rolled my eyes, a smile tugging at my lips despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. Good different, I admitted, my cheeks flushing. Alex's hand moved to brush a strand of hair from my face, their touch feather-light. You have no idea how long I've wanted this, they murmured, their eyes locking with mine. To just be here with you like this, without pretending, without holding back. I swallowed hard, the intensity of their gaze sending shivers down my spine. It feels so overwhelming, I confessed. I know, Alex said, their voice soothing. But we've got time, Liv. We don't have to figure everything out tonight. Let's just be in this moment, together. I nodded, letting their words sink in. For years, Alex had been my safe haven, the one person who could calm me when everything else felt chaotic. And now, here they were, offering me a new kind of sanctuary, a love that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. You make it sound so simple, I said, my voice tinged with disbelief. Because it is, they replied, their tone gentle but firm. Loving you is the easiest thing I've ever done, Liv. My breath hitched at their words, my chest tightening with an ache I couldn't quite explain. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that until now. Alex, I began, but my voice faltered. How could I possibly put everything I was feeling into words? They seemed to understand, their fingers brushing against mine as they leaned closer. You don't have to say anything, they whispered. I already know. For a moment, we stayed like that, the world around us fading into nothingness. The warmth of their presence, the steadiness of their gaze, the gentle touch of their hand. It all felt so new and yet so familiar, like coming home after years of being lost. And then, with a courage I didn't know I had, I leaned in again, capturing their lips in a kiss that was both tender and filled with unspoken promises. This time, I let myself fall completely, surrendering to the feelings I'd been too afraid to acknowledge before. When we pulled apart, my forehead rested against theirs, our breaths mingling in the small space between us. This doesn't feel real, I admitted, my voice trembling. It's real, Alex assured me, their hands gently cupping my face. And I'm not going anywhere, Liv. No matter what happens, I'm here. Always. Tears welled in my eyes, but this time, they weren't from fear or confusion. They were tears of relief, of hope, of something I hadn't felt in years. Love. You've ruined me, you know that? I said, my lips curving into a wobbly smile. Alex laughed softly, their thumbs brushing away my tears. I think we've ruined each other. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. We stood there for what felt like forever, wrapped in each other's arms, the weight of the world finally lifting from my shoulders. This was uncharted territory, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what lay ahead. Because with Alex by my side, I knew we could face anything. The days that followed felt like a dream, each moment with Alex more surreal than the last. We didn't rush anything, letting our newfound connection unfold naturally. But even in the quiet moments, when we sat on the couch watching TV or walked side by side through the park, there was a new undercurrent between us, something neither of us could ignore. It was in the way Alex's hand would linger on mine a little longer than before, or how their gaze would soften when they thought I wasn't looking. It was in the way my heart would race when they said my name, as if it carried a new kind of weight. One evening, about a week after that night, we found ourselves on my balcony, wrapped in blankets and nursing cups of tea. The city lights twinkled below us, casting a warm glow that seemed to mirror the quiet contentment in the air. Do you remember the first time we met? Alex asked suddenly, their voice breaking the comfortable silence. I smiled, thinking back. Of course I do. You were so cocky and full of yourself. I couldn't stand you. Alex laughed, the sound rich and warm. And yet, here we are. Here we are, I echoed, my smile softening. They turned to look at me, their expression shifting to something more serious. I don't think I ever told you this, but that day, it changed everything for me. You came into my life like a hurricane, and nothing's been the same since. My cheeks flushed, and I looked down at my tea, the weight of their words settling over me. Alex, you're not playing fair, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I'm not trying to play fair, they replied, their voice gentle. I'm just trying to be honest with you, Liv. For so long, I kept all of this bottled up, and now that it's out, I don't want to hold back anymore. I glanced up at them, the vulnerability in their eyes making my chest ache. You make it sound so easy, I said softly. It's not, they admitted. It's terrifying, but you're worth it. You've always been worth it. The sincerity in their voice was almost too much to bear. I set my tea down and reached for their hand, intertwining my fingers with theirs. I'm scared too, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But I want this. I want us. Alex's grip on my hand tightened, their eyes shining with something I couldn't quite name. Love, hope, maybe even relief. You have no idea how much that means to me, they said, their voice thick with emotion. We sat there for a while, the city lights twinkling around us as we held on to each other. It wasn't perfect. There were still so many questions, so many uncertainties, but in that moment, it didn't matter. All that mattered was the warmth of Alex's hand in mine and the quiet promise of what was to come. The first time Alex stayed over felt like crossing another invisible line. It wasn't planned. We'd spent the evening talking and lost track of time, and by the time we realized how late it was, neither of us wanted to say goodbye. You can stay, I offered, trying to sound casual even as my heart raced. Alex hesitated for only a moment before nodding. Okay, but I'm stealing the side of the bed closest to the window. I rolled my eyes, laughing as I tossed them a spare pillow. You're lucky I'm letting you stay at all. They grinned, their eyes sparkling with mischief. Oh, don't pretend you're not thrilled to have me here. I didn't respond, but the blush creeping up my cheeks said it all. That night, as we lay side by side in the dark, I felt a new kind of closeness with Alex, a quiet intimacy that didn't need words. Their breathing was slow and even, and the warmth of their presence lulled me into a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. Liv, they whispered, their voice breaking the stillness. Yeah? I don't know what's going to happen, but I need you to know you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Tears pricked at my eyes, and I reached for their hand in the dark, squeezing it gently. You're not so bad yourself, Alex. They laughed softly, their thumb brushing over my knuckles. Go to sleep, Liv. We've got all the time in the world to figure this out. And for the first time in a long time, I believed them. The weeks that followed felt like stepping into a new world, one where Alex and I were navigating this uncharted territory between love and friendship. Every moment carried a quiet thrill, an accidental brush of hands, a lingering look, the shared laughter that now held an unspoken tenderness. One evening, we decided to cook dinner together at my place. It wasn't the first time we'd done this, but it was the first time it felt different. The air between us was charged with something new, a magnetic pull that seemed to bring us closer with every shared glance. Pass me the basil, Alex said, holding out their hand. I grabbed the small bunch of leaves and placed it in their palm, my fingers brushing against theirs. The touch was brief, but it sent a spark up my arm, and I couldn't help the shy smile that crept onto my face. You're staring, Alex teased, glancing at me with a playful smirk. Am not, I shot back, crossing my arms. Are too, they countered, their grin widening as they set the basil aside. I rolled my eyes, but my cheeks were burning. Focus on the food, Alex. I don't want to end up eating something you've burned. They laughed, the sound rich and warm. You wound me, Liv. Have a little faith in my cooking skills. I smirked, leaning against the counter as I watched them work. Despite their teasing, there was something mesmerizing about the way Alex moved in the kitchen, confident and sure, as if they were in their element. You know, I said, my voice softer now. This feels nice. Us, doing this. Alex glanced up, their expression softening. Yeah, it does. The moment lingered, the air between us thick with unspoken words. But before I could say anything more, Alex stepped closer, their hand brushing against mine. "You have no idea how much I love this," they murmured, their voice low. "Just being here with you." My breath hitched, and for a moment, all I could do was look at them, my heart pounding in my chest. "Alex," I began, but they cut me off with a small shake of their head. "You don't have to say anything," they said gently. I need you to know how much this means to me, how much you mean to me." Tears pricked at my eyes, and I reached out, my fingers curling around theirs. "I know," I whispered. "I feel it too." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of quiet laughter and stolen glances. By the time we sat down to eat, the tension between us had shifted, replaced by a warmth that felt both familiar and new. After dinner, we curled up on the couch, a blanket draped over us as we watched an old movie. My head rested on Alex's shoulder, and their arm was wrapped around me, their fingers tracing idle patterns on my arm. "Liv," they murmured, their voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah," I replied, tilting my head to look up at them. They hesitated for a moment, their eyes searching mine. "Do you ever think about forever?" The question caught me off guard, but the sincerity in their gaze kept me grounded. "Forever?" I echoed, my voice soft. "Yeah," they said, their hand tightening slightly around mine. "With us, what it could look like." My chest tightened at the vulnerability in their words, and I reached up to cup their face, my thumb brushing against their cheek. "I think about it all the time," I admitted, my voice trembling. "And it scares me, but it also makes me feel hopeful." Alex smiled, their eyes shining with emotion. "Me too," they said softly. "And I promise, Liv, whatever forever looks like for us, I'll do everything I can to make it amazing." Tears slipped down my cheeks, but they were tears of joy, of relief. I leaned in, capturing their lips in a kiss that was both tender and full of promise. In that moment, wrapped in Alex's arms, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to believe before. I didn't have to have all the answers. All I needed was this: Alex, their love, their unwavering presence. Forever didn't seem so scary anymore. It was supposed to be a simple evening, just the two of us, celebrating our unofficial anniversary of sorts, marking the moment everything between us had changed. Alex had insisted on planning the whole night, refusing to tell me a single detail. "Just trust me," they'd said with that familiar grin that always made my heart flutter. And I did trust them, even though I knew that Alex's plans rarely went off without some sort of hitch. The chaos started before the night even began. Alex showed up late, their hair a mess, their shirt wrinkled, and their arms full of bags. "The flowers didn't arrive on time," they blurted as they stepped into my apartment. "So I had to chase down a florist across town, and then I got stuck in traffic, and then—" "Alex," I interrupted, laughing as I took the bags from their hands. "It's okay, you're here, and that's all that matters." They sighed, running a hand through their hair. "I just wanted everything to be perfect." I reached out, my fingers brushing against theirs. "It already is. You're here. I'm here. What else do we need?" They gave me a sheepish smile, leaning in to press a quick kiss to my forehead. "You're way too good to me, you know that?" The rest of the night was a blur of mishaps. The dinner Alex had planned ended up slightly burned because we got too caught up in talking and forgot to check the oven. The candles they'd brought refused to stay lit because of a mysterious draft, and the playlist they'd painstakingly curated kept skipping to random, overly dramatic ballads that had us both in stitches. By the time we made it to dessert, a lopsided cake that Alex confessed they'd baked themselves, we were both laughing so hard our sides ached. "I don't think this was the romantic evening you had in mind," I said between giggles, wiping a tear from the corner of my eye. Alex shrugged, their own laughter fading into a soft smile. "Maybe not, but honestly, I wouldn't trade it for anything." We ended up on the floor of my living room, the remains of the cake between us as we talked late into the night. It was one of those rare conversations where time seemed to stretch and blur, where every word felt important, even the silly ones. At some point, Alex reached for my hand, their fingers intertwining with mine. "Live," they said softly, their voice filled with a tenderness that made my chest ache. "Yeah," I replied, my heart already racing. "I know I've said it a million times, but I need to say it again. You're everything to me. You're my best friend, my partner, Your chaos?" I interrupted, a teasing smile tugging at my lips. Alex laughed, their eyes shining. "Exactly. My beautiful, sweet chaos. And I wouldn't have it any other way." I leaned in, pressing my forehead against theirs. "You're my chaos too," I whispered. "And I don't know where this is going, or what's going to happen next, but I know I want it with you." Their lips met mine in a kiss that was slow and full of promise, a silent agreement that no matter what chaos the future held, we'd face it together. When we finally pulled apart, Alex grinned, their hand reaching up to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. "You know this cake is awful, right?" I laughed, the sound filling the room. "Terrible," I agreed, "but it's ours." And as we sat there, surrounded by the remnants of our perfectly imperfect evening, I realized that life didn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. Sometimes the sweetest moments were the ones wrapped in chaos, the messy, unpredictable, glorious chaos that made it all worthwhile. And with Alex by my side, I couldn't wait to see what came next. As we sat there on the living room floor, the night winding down around us, I couldn't help but marvel at how something so chaotic could feel so perfect. The mismatched candles flickered weakly, casting soft shadows on Alex's face, their expression both tender and amused as they watched me. "Do you realize what we've done?" I asked, my voice filled with mock seriousness. Alex raised an eyebrow. "Burned dinner, ruined a perfectly good cake, and made a complete mess of your apartment?" I laughed, shaking my head. "No, you idiot. We've made memories. Messy, ridiculous, unforgettable memories." They smiled, the kind of smile that made my chest ache in the best way. "Well, I'd say we're off to a pretty good start then." The weight of their words hung in the air, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. It wasn't uncomfortable, just the opposite. It was the kind of silence that felt full, brimming with all the things we didn't need to say out loud because we already knew. But Alex, of course, couldn't resist breaking it. "You know," they began, their tone teasing, "this whole chaotic mess is really your fault." "Oh, really?" I shot back, crossing my arms as I leaned closer. "And how exactly is that?" They grinned, leaning in until their face was just inches from mine. "Because you make me want to try, to do all these big, grand things I'd normally never even think about. You make me want to be more, Liv. For you." My breath caught, my playful retort dying on my lips. The vulnerability in their eyes, the quiet intensity of their words, it was almost too much. "Alex," I whispered, reaching out to cup their face. "You don't have to be anything more than you already are. You're enough, more than enough." Their eyes searched mine, and for a moment, I thought they might argue, but then they smiled, soft and full of something I could only describe as love. "You're really bad for my ego, you know that?" they teased, their voice cracking just slightly. "And yet, you keep coming back," I shot back, a grin tugging at my lips. "Always," they said, their voice firm, their gaze steady. "I'll always come back for you." Before I could respond, Alex leaned in, capturing my lips in a kiss that was anything but chaotic. It was steady, grounding, filled with a quiet certainty that told me everything I needed to know. When we finally pulled apart, I rested my forehead against theirs, my fingers still tangled in their hair. "You're my sweet chaos," I murmured, the words slipping out before I could stop them. Alex laughed softly, their arms wrapping around me as they pulled me closer. "And you're mine, but I wouldn't trade this for anything, Liv, not a single thing." The rest of the world faded away as we held each other, the remnants of our chaotic night scattered around us like confetti. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't supposed to be, but it was ours, messy and beautiful, and exactly what I never knew I needed. And as Alex's hand found mine, their fingers lacing through mine with a warmth that felt like home, I knew one thing for certain. We were just getting started. As we sat there surrounded by the remnants of the night, crumbs from the cake, a half-burned candle sputtering on the table, and a bottle of wine we'd barely touched, I felt the world shrink down to just the two of us. The city outside the window could have disappeared and I wouldn't have noticed. Alex pulled me closer, tucking me against their chest as they leaned back against the couch. I felt their heartbeat under my ear, steady and calming, a rhythm I realized I'd come to crave. "You know," Alex began, their voice soft but laced with humor. "I had this whole plan, a perfect evening with candles, music, flowers." "None of which worked," I teased, my lips curving into a smile. They chuckled, their chest vibrating against me. "Yeah, well, I guess the universe had other ideas. But honestly," they paused, their hand brushing a strand of hair from my face, "I don't think I'd change a thing." I tilted my head to look up at them, my fingers absently tracing patterns on their arm. "You wouldn't change burning the dinner? Or the cake that's more like a brick?" "Not even that," Alex said, their tone serious now. "Because all of it, the mess, the chaos, the laughter, it's us, Liv. It's real. And I think I've spent my whole life searching for something real." My throat tightened at their words, the rawness of their honesty catching me off guard. "Alex," I started, but they stopped me with a soft kiss, their lips brushing against mine with a tenderness that made my chest ache. When they pulled back, their forehead rested against mine, their breath warm against my skin. "I know I'm not perfect," they whispered, "and I know I'm probably going to mess things up again. But I'm all in, Liv. For you, for us, no matter how messy it gets." Tears prickled at my eyes, but I smiled through them, my hands cradling their face. "I don't need perfect, Alex. I just need you." Their eyes searched mine, shining with something so profound it stole my breath. "God, Liv," they murmured, their voice breaking. "You have no idea what you do to me." And then, as if on cue, the candle on the table tipped over, landing in the half-eaten cake and setting off a small puff of smoke. "Alex!" I gasped, scrambling to grab the candle before it did any real damage. Okay, I got it," Alex said, grabbing a glass of water and dousing the cake entirely, leaving us both staring at the soggy, smoky mess in stunned silence. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Alex turned to me, their eyes wide, their lips twitching. "Sweet chaos," they said, their voice filled with laughter that quickly bubbled over, pulling me along with it. We collapsed onto the floor, clutching our sides as the laughter overtook us, tears streaming down our faces. It was ridiculous and messy, and so completely us that I couldn't stop, even when my cheeks ached and my stomach hurt. When the laughter finally died down, Alex pulled me into their arms, their grip firm and grounding. "I love you," they said suddenly, the words spilling out so naturally, it was as if they'd always been there waiting for the right moment. I froze for a heartbeat, the weight of their confession sinking in. But then I looked at them, their tousled hair, the way their eyes crinkled when they smiled, the unwavering warmth in their gaze, and I knew. "I love you too," I said, my voice soft but steady. Alex's smile lit up the room, brighter than any candle ever could. They leaned in, their lips finding mine in a kiss that was messy and perfect all at once, a kiss that felt like home. As we sat there, tangled together on the floor, I realized that life with Alex would never be neat or predictable. It would be full of unexpected moments, laughter, and sweet chaos, and I wouldn't have it any other way.